Previously on Chaos Head Noah. His current state was a textbook example of sleepwalking. The delirious boy launched the web browser, then opened @channel. His movement itself was languid and slow, but he showed no hesitation in selecting a thread from the board related to New Gen. The board listed a total of around 60 threads, and Takumi slowly opened each one of them, one by one. 60 tabs has got to be murder on your freaking browser, on your RAM. And then, with his eyes remained glued to the monitor, he began to type. He repeated this action for each and every thread. His posts were not particularly long, only housing a few characters each, but they all composed of the exact same sentence. Whose eyes are those eyes? Yeah. Oh, hey! Shogun! I had now come to think of the sword as my sole, only means of opposing the demon girl. I didn't have any idea what I would actually do after I got it, though. I certainly wasn't brave enough to kill her with it. Not even close. Which is why I suggest you get someone else who already has one. I'm sure they'd be brave enough for it. Even so, I had hoped that if I got my hands on a sword, I would be released somewhat from the terror that was tormenting me. The D-sword would be my protective charm. Something I could depend on. There was something strangely alluring about that sword. Hello.
ファーストメルトは期待以上の結果に終わりました。GE レートの上昇率は当初の予測からわずかな誤差があった程度です。
バイオリズムコントロールも順調なのかね。
渋谷の GE レートは他のエリアと比べて高い値を持っていると同時に安定性についても特筆したものがあります。
それゆえに意図的に操作しやすいということか。そして渋谷にいる人々のバイオリズムを急激に引き上げることもまた。
実験結果についてはレポートをご参照ください。納得していただける成果を上げております。
貴様が成果を出すのは当然だ。そのために高い金と多くの人材を提供しているのだからな。
実効性については理解しているよ。この数ヶ月だけでも我が会の信者が数倍に膨れ上がっているからね。
それではプロジェクトノアは次の段階へと進ませます。よろしいですね。
コードサンプルの件はどうするのだ。すでに3人分は確保したとはいえ目標数値には達しておらんではないか。
いかにも。数値達成のためには最低でも5人分はなければ厳しい。実効性については理解しているよ。この数ヶ月だけでも我が会の信者が数倍に膨れ上がっているからね。
それではプロジェクトノアは次の段階へと進ませます。よろしいですね。
コードサンプルの件はどうするのだ。すでに3人分は確保したとはいえ目標数値には達しておらんではないか。
いかにも。数値達成のためには最低でも5人分はなければ厳しい。
サンプル保持者は集まりつつあります。あとは採取するのみ。
ならばその件は任せる。
信仰の救いあれ。くれぐれも慎重にことを進めるように。
はい。心得ております。
Let's say the person controlling me had lost a chunk of my EXP for some reason or another. If that happened, then it would make complete sense why I'd forgotten things. That could also be where the discrepancies in my memory had come from. Things like Shogun and the demon girl. Before a chunk of my EXP got wiped, maybe it was perfectly normal for me, the person controlling me, to post in chat rooms under the handle Shogun. and for me to live like a complete normie with the demon girl. No, that just wasn't possible. But if it was possible, then maybe I'd use it to possess an incredible power that would allow me to oppose the demon girl. Was I the only person who thought like this? I didn't really feel like it was a particularly weird way of thinking. Human beings can only make judgments based on their own sense of values that they come up with themselves. So maybe it wasn't just me living my day-to-day life, making the wrong decisions, but everyone in the entire world.
今日から転校生が入ることになった。
My homeroom teacher mumbled that to the class. Oh, so that was why the room was so noisy.
ほら、折原、みんなに挨拶しろ。
I didn't hear the supposed transfer students say anything. Was there really no one here? I glanced toward the door. Well, look who it is. I was wondering when you would show, and sure enough, there was someone there. She was extremely petite, possibly even more so than Nanami. She looked fairly timid, emulating that moe gets bullied all the time archetype. If I had to choose, she was probably around mid-tier when it came to 3D girls. For some reason, she was looking down at the floor, her eyes filled with tears. The transfer student remained as sheepish as ever, not uttering so much as a peep. Rimi also didn't say a word. In fact, she didn't give any indication that she was here at all. The scattered whispers grew to murmurs as the new transfer student maintained her silence. So, in order to comfort her, the teacher placed his hand on her shoulder.
どうやら折原は緊張しているようだな。よし、挨拶はいい。みんな、この子は折原梢だ。仲良くしてやってくれ。折原、席は一番後ろだ。席についていいぞ。
The transfer student made her way to the back without saying a word, keeping her head low to the ground. My breath caught in my throat. My mind went completely blank. A voice had come from directly behind me. She really was here. That girl really was here after all.
具合悪そうだけど、平気？
I needed to run. I needed to run as fast as I could. Despite that, my legs were shaking so violently that I didn't think I could even stand. And while I was frozen solid, the demon girl, Sakihara Rimi, circled around to the front of my seat.
汗びっしょり。風邪でもひいたんじゃない？
Just like 2 days ago, she spoke as if she were concerned about me. Just like 2 days ago, she held out her floral-scented handkerchief. I didn't accept the handkerchief, hurriedly wiping the sweat from my forehead on my own.
なんて。
何？
I couldn't look her in the eye. From how she spoke, I could tell she had a smile on her face.
ねえねえ、さっき何話してたの？
I've been careless. 2 days ago, when Misumi-kun told me that Rimi was our classmate, I figured that he was either spewing some bullshit or outright deluding himself. But she really was my classmate. Or at the very least, she had become one. There was no point in trying to figure out how she managed to worm her way in. She was a demon. She could do things that humans were incapable of with ease. Maybe she brainwashed my whole class. Or maybe she brainwashed all of the teachers instead. I couldn't go to the hospital anymore, and now I couldn't go to school either, Meanwhile, Yua was at Cafe, and Shogun always appeared online. The demon girl and her underlings were no doubt getting closer and closer to me, continually hitting me with psychological attack after psychological attack as they did it. Maybe I shouldn't leave my base at all anymore. Maybe there were enemies in danger at every turn in reality. They had disturbed me and threatened my peace, even though all I wanted was to live a quiet life, bothering nobody and being bothered by nobody. I looked up at the blue sky. It floated calmly above me as the wind blew white clouds across its breadth. How nice would it be if I could become one of those clouds? And so it continues. Greetings, my name's Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Chaos Head Noah. So, apparently 3 hours had passed. Which is a shame if it were still from Takumi's perspective, because I kind of wanted to watch him try to go through an entire school day with Rimi hovering a few desks behind him the whole way through. The tension would be quite delicious, I'm sure. Otherwise, if we're not seeing this from Takumi's perspective, which I suspect is a possibility because I hear wind in the background, and last I checked, the classrooms in the school halls aren't exactly known for being windy. Well, just the obvious question is, who are we and where are we? Anyway, let's find out what's going on. Around 3 hours had passed. Oh, never mind, he's on the school roof. I guess the school roof could be windy. I had stayed in the same place the entire time without moving. I didn't sense anyone else coming up at this moment, and you deprive me of my tension. How dare you? I could finally breathe. The problem, however, was what came after. During break, there would always be students that'd come up here to eat lunch. That was why the best way out of this was to escape during fourth period and make a break for my base. It'd mess up my minimum attendance chart, but I didn't possess even a single ounce of courage that'd allow me to return to the classroom where the demon girl was. I decided not to worry about the fact that I'd left my bag in the classroom. Takumi, whatever this girl's intentions may be, I don't think the second you walk into that classroom, you're going to find yourself walking into the opening of Dead Man Wonderland. Just saying. All I had in there were textbooks. My wallet, my keys, and anything else important would be in my uniform pockets. I hoped. Growing slightly nervous, I searched my pockets. Wallet, keys, cell phone. They were all there. That was when I remembered that someone had called me. I had been pretty freaked out at the time, but not as much as when Rimi had talked to me.
一体誰だ?
I couldn't think of anyone who'd called besides my family. Didn't you give Yua your cell phone number? Or your email, at least? Yeah, I think it was his email he gave. It would make the most sense if it was Nanami. She never thought about whether she might be bothering me, after all. It's for your own good, son. The only other people who know this number would be... Oh, wait, that's right. I gave it to those detectives. Ah, yes, you did. I forgot about that. If it had been one of them, I really should have picked up. They still hadn't sent the officers to my base like they said they would, so I really needed to talk to them to make sure that was still happening. The caller's phone number was displayed on the screen. What area has only a two-digit number? Outer space? It didn't seem to be Nanami's. When I looked closer, I saw that I had a new voicemail. Oh, wait a minute. And all the rest of the numbers are in 4-digit increments. We definitely must be in an alternate universe. Because this shit's really weird. Arguably even weirder than the murders. It didn't seem to be Naname's. And when I looked closer, I saw that I had a new voicemail. I had the vague feeling that I'd seen this number before. Just in case, I checked the call history. Okay, so it's not just a stock image that I'm just looking at here. It really is the same number. Because, I mean, my first thought was this number does look kind of familiar, but is it the same one? Turns out it was. There are only 5 calls on the list. I'm gonna go with the red this time. Which meant that, since I bought the cell phone, I only received 5 calls. 3 of which were from Nanami, and I just realized I'm gonna have to go back and check which delusion trigger choices I've been choosing up till now, because up till now, I haven't really been keeping track. Oh boy. Aren't I a dummy? Which meant that, since I bought the cell phone, I'd only received 5 calls. 3 of which were from Nanami. That left 2 others. The one from earlier today, and the one from 5 days ago, were shown as numbers instead of names, as they hadn't been registered in my address book. They were both from the same number. 03-X7333-X991. Considering they had gone out of their way to leave a message, it was probably someone who really wanted to tell me something. Probably on how you can save your car insurance by switching to Geico. Oh, come on. I'm getting the wobbly screen. Guess I go ahead and listen to it. So, if I've chosen a red option, the screen is all wobbly and woozy. Does that mean that this voicemail is going to sound like something straight out of a horror movie? Someone getting murdered by Jason Voorhees or something? Well, I'll be damned. It was you after all.
ごめんなさい。突然お電話しちゃって。ただ、どうしてもお話ししたいことがあって。セイラちゃんの新しいフィギュア、私も買いました。西条くんのおかげです。ありがとうございました。とっても可愛いんですけど、ちょっとエッチですね。買うときすごく恥ずかしかったです。あ、そうそう、今週のブラチュー見ました？すごい展開でしたね。私見ながらずっとドキドキしちゃって。
I could have sworn I'd chosen the red one because so far this whole thing is surprisingly pleasant. Or maybe it's a delayed reaction sort of thing, and it just has yet to start going downhill. And I just gotta give it a few moments. Correction. Let's give that a few milliseconds.
あなたが殺したの。人殺し。真犯人。罪を償いなさい。逃がさないから。その目、誰の目？
Even though it had been my own delusion, I was terrified. It was entirely possible for you to have gotten hold of my cell phone number from somewhere and called me after all. How, though? I didn't want to listen to the voice message anymore if I could help it. But since I'd already simulated the worst possible outcome in my delusions, I should have been able to handle it as long as I had only to listen I'm getting tongue twisted. As long as I only had to listen and nothing else. Shaking off my depression, I set the message to play back. Then, after checking multiple times to make sure the demon girl wasn't there, I put my phone to my ear. Don't worry. I'm sure if she wanted to sneak up on you, she'll do it right as you're getting to the good stuff.
こちらは留守番電話サービスセンターです。新しいメッセージは1件です。1件目。10月17日金曜日午前8時28分の伝言です。
Yes, I forgot. Voicemail messages used to give you the exact time and dates that they're left. Those were the good old tedious days. Read my mind, Takumi. Instead of someone's voice, there was an incredibly familiar melody. It felt like the sound was being recorded from a short distance away from the phone. Maybe the person on the other end was near a pedestrian signal. I'm trying to figure out what that noise is. The song being played was one you'd hear pretty often at crosswalks. It was used in order to let people with visual disabilities know when it was okay to cross. So if that's what I'm hearing, then what the hell have they done to the crosswalk signal? The song was a nursery rhyme called You May Pass, known as Torianse. Torianse? Hope I got that right. While there were a lot of people who knew the melody, there weren't many who knew the lyrics. Oh, and I was one of them, actually. I'd memorized them back in middle school. Then again, it wasn't like I remembered them perfectly now. You may pass. Where shall this narrow path take us to? It is the path to Tenjin Shrine. Please, oh please, will you let us pass? Those with no business will not be let through to celebrate the 7 years of this child's birth. We have come with an offering. Going may prove easy, but returning is. But returning is wee-oo, was what I heard from the phone. It sounded like an ambulance, which felt kind of like a bad omen. It likely didn't actually mean anything, but still made me feel pretty creeped out. I disagree. I think it means something important. The second after the traffic signal melody got cut off, an extremely loud noise that sounded like a buzzer exploded from the speakers. It was so ridiculously loud that I'd automatically shot the phone away from my ear. When I cautiously brought the phone back to my ear, the voicemail had already stopped playing. Honestly, I think I consider this voicemail far spookier than the one I just deluded myself into thinking I heard. But that's just my opinion. What was that? Right at the end there. I thought I just barely heard a roaring noise. It sounded like the ground itself was rumbling. That buzzer sound was completely separate from the pedestrian signal melody. Considering how loud it had been, the only thing I can think of was that the phone's receiver had deliberately been put next to whatever had made that noise.
いたずら?
Nah, I think it's a bad omen. A really bad omen. My heart began to pound. Had I done something to make someone hate me enough to do that? I'm not sure hate is the right word, but they certainly are quite eager to share something with you. For whatever reason. Who'd even call me in the first place? I don't know, Shogun? I could call him back by dialing the number displayed on my phone, but there was no way I'd be able to call back a prank caller. In the end, all I could do was just leave it. Besides, I was stuck in the middle of a situation far worse than any prank call. I returned my phone to my pocket and ever so carefully, left the school, making sure to pay close attention to my surroundings as I escaped. I'm going to run with the theory that whatever we heard on the phone just now was some kind of act of precognition. It felt like a warning of some sort. Towards what exactly? Well, I'm still trying to... I don't know if I can really figure it out just from the nursery rhyme alone. Something about an offering. What if these new gen murders are offerings to something? Random thought. Got nothing to back it up with, but it just occurred to me. If that's the case, then maybe that nursery rhyme was just giving me a clue as to what at least some of these new gen murders are, if not all of them. Again, I'm just spitballing here. No idea if I'm right or not. Nishijo Takumi's alma mater, Kitazawa Second Elementary School, was about a 5-minute walk from the private train station. Ban Yasuji had attempted to contact Takumi's elementary school teacher over the phone, only to be told that they had unfortunately passed away. Left with no other choice, Ban had decided to set up a meeting to speak with the person who had answered the phone instead. The head teacher, Cameo. Cameo? I go with Cameo. Not long after, he had arrived at the school together with his partner. As it was a Saturday, the school gate was closed. The two detectives, Ban and Suwa, stopped in front of it and turned their attention toward the school building. The white walls of the school's exterior had been painted with a brightly colored, eye-catching mural. Due to his complete lack of knowledge on paintings or any other kind of fine art, Ban had no idea what it signified. But the way the spiral-shaped mural transitioned vertically into an array of 7 different colors reminded him of a rainbow. 7. As Ban stared at the mural, cooling himself with his handheld fan, his partner, Suwa, pushed the intercom button next to the school gate. Suddenly, Ban looked around. Ban. He had a feeling that someone was watching him. There was a gaze that seemed to follow him everywhere, leaving him quite discomfited? I know discomforted. If that... New word.
俺ってそんなにかっこいいか
But as cool as another detective I know. He attempted to strike a casual pose, one that aimed to be dandy and refined.
先輩、何変なポーズしてるんすか？裏門の方に通用口があるんで、そっちに回ってくれって。
Ban retired from his pose with a sigh and headed toward the back of the building. The staff room was easy to find. As soon as they entered through the side door, all they had to do was travel down the rear entrance hallway and turn a single corridor to arrive at the room. There was, of course, no sign of children in the school. Although it was likely a mere illusion created by a smooth linoleum floor, the two detectives felt far colder inside the building than they had outside. There were 3 teachers in the staff room. Upon seeing the 2 detectives enter the room, one of the 3 stood up and bowed. The man who stood up was named Kamio. His mostly white hair was parted to the side, and he greeted the 2 of them with a gentle smile. Ban and Suwa showed their police badges to him almost simultaneously, returned his greetings briefly, and immediately approached the topic at hand. It was Suwa's job to ask the questions.
ここの卒業生である西条匠くんについて教えていただきたいんですが。
彼のことは印象に残っています。私は担任ではなかったから詳しくとなると無理ですが、それでも構いませんか。
Suwa nodded, taking out his notebook and preparing to write everything down.
西条くんはどんな子だったんですか？
難しい子だと聞いていました。特殊だと。
特殊？
本来なら他の生徒に混ざって勉強するのはとても困難な、病気を患っていたらしく。
具体的には？
そこまで私が言ってしまっていいのかどうか。ご家族なり医師なりに聞いていただけますか。
Schools had recently begun adopting this approach, where they would avoid any issues that may prove difficult to them. They refuse to take part in anything that may earn them complaints from parents or any other parties. Such practices made it incredibly difficult for the police to do their jobs.
担任の先生はなんで亡くなったんです？
事故です。遠足の最中、乗っていたバスが陥没した道路に。
あ、自分それ知ってるっす。ニュースでやってたっすよね。
子供たちは怪我をしただけで幸い命は助かったのですが、斉藤先生だけが犠牲になってしまい、なんともやりきれない思いです。
西条くんもその事故に巻き込まれた。
No, he wasn't. In response to Ban's question, Kamio shook his head lightly.
あの子は当日欠席していてバスには乗っていませんでした。
欠席の理由は？
病が悪化したと聞いたような覚えがありますが。
Ban too had a faint recollection of the accident. For multiple days following the incident, in the short glimpses Ban caught off of the news, he would always see the media swarming the house of the sole boy who had not been involved in it.
あれは悲しい事故だったんですよ。
Placed a lot of emphasis on the word accident. You know something, Teach? For some reason, while Kamio was repeating himself, he placed a strong emphasis on the word accident. Ah, so I'm not the only one who noticed. Well, that was weird. Like, seriously, does this guy know something? Because it kind of feels like he does. Thinking back on what we know of Takumi's childhood so far, every time he'd visit a doctor, he would get visits from men in black suits. These nosebleed figures that we've been seeing wandering around recently. I wonder if some of these same figures were also in any way involved with some of the staff members at the school that Takumi went to when he was in elementary as well. And if that's the case, then maybe some of these staff members are privy to some information, or they were just told by some of these suits in black to just refer to it as that bus toppling over as an accident and nothing else. Well, whatever the case may be, he clearly knows something. I started talking with Grimm a lot more before booting up ESO recently, to the point where it was becoming almost like a ritual. It never really mattered what we talked about. We trade interesting or funny @channel threads, go off about porny shit, wreck and other wreck each other new comics, talk about the anime from the day before, or other various dumb stuff. Funnily enough, we didn't actually talk about ESO very much, but that was just because we had already talked about it while we were playing it. You know, I've just noticed something. This Saratan figure, because of the hat she's wearing, it kind of makes her look like she's got a third eye. I mean, she's got eyes on other parts of the outfit, but it's an interesting little detail I've just noticed. Probably unimportant. Has there been some weird-ass prank going around recently? Not a lot to go off there. Deets, please. I don't know. I just heard about it from someone I know. Don't know if it's actually a fad or some shit. It's like there's a recording of a weird sound, and you get that as a voicemail or something. What, like a moe whispering sweet nothings to you? Lol, lol. The fuck? LMAO, what eroge is that from? I mean, wouldn't you rather them just do that to you in person? Lol. No one cares whose fucking eyes are those eyes. Grimm, stop spooking me now. Grimm was still saying that. Thanks to that, I started to feel awful pretty much immediately. Not to mention he was talking really weird in chat, to a point where it felt fairly forced. Like he was trying way too hard to be funny by shoving those words in. Or at the very least, I didn't find it funny. In fact, it felt more cringy than anything. But I couldn't let myself get angry at him until I'd gotten my info about the prank. So I was forced to put up with it. Okay, so it's like the sounds of a wild otaku freak fapping then? Well. Okay, that's too far. But in all seriousness, they play You May Pass. You May Pass? What, like the song? The one that plays at crosswalks and shit? Yeah, that one. And then while it's playing, it'll get cut off halfway and swap to a buzzer-like sound. Apparently the volume is ear-raped here. So yeah, ever heard of a prank like that? That's the kind of thing you'd find floating around @channel, right? Yesterday I got a voicemail with a mysterious buzzer sound. I had no idea who'd sent it, and the contents unsettled me for some reason, which is why I decided to try and ask Grimm if he knew about it. If it was just a simple prank, I could just forget about it. Huh? Grimm wasn't responding. Why was he being silent? Maybe he's AFK. Hello? Did you die? I would laugh if he actually died. Still no response. Grimm didn't usually fall asleep like this. In fact, this was the first time it ever happened. Okay, then I guess we got reason to be a little bit concerned, if this is indeed the first time. If he had actually fallen asleep, then I guess I'd just log off. We'd meet up again later in ESO anyway, so I could just bring it up again then. But the second I thought that, I began to get up from my chair. Kept you waiting, huh? I was sifting through @channel. I was looking for stuff about your prank. Oh, so that was why he disappeared. But that meant that even the oh-so-well-informed Grimm hadn't known about the prank. But no matter how many threads or boards or whatever I searched, I found nothing. Not on @channel, nor anywhere on the net. So, would that mean that whoever had pulled that prank had some sort of personal grudge against me? I was still curious about the true identity of the caller, but I wasn't brave enough to call them back. It's probably the only way you're going to find out. Wait, that's it. Since I knew the phone number, that meant I could have someone else call it for me. That way you could take the fall. Now, don't do that. What if you actually get somebody killed? You'd be an indirect murderer in that case. Accidental as it may be. Like, if anybody's going to take the fall here, I'd say it should be you, since you're the one that they called in the first place. The best person for the job would be either Nanami or Misumi-kun, you dick. Wait, Misumi-kun may have been brainwashed by a demon girl, so that wouldn't work. Why wouldn't it work just because he's brainwashed? He's still mortal, last I checked. As for Nanami, however, I was sure I had no trouble asking her to do it. She'd probably get pissed at me afterward, but who gives a shit? Hell, if anything, it'd be good for her to suffer the tortures of society every once in a while. She suffers them just fine. It's you who needs to suffer more. I thanked Grimm for his help, promised I'd meet back up with him on ESO in a few hours, and closed the chat. Right as I did so, I felt my stomach growl. Man, I was hungry. Did I have any cup ramen stocked anywhere? I tried looking around for a bit, and I couldn't find any. Reluctantly, I decided to head to the convenience store to buy some. You really need to change your diet up once in a while. Go buy yourself a rotisserie chicken. The sun was already setting. I wanted to avoid going out late at night as much as possible, because every time I did recently, nothing good ever came of it. I unconsciously started walking faster, hurrying down the road toward the convenience store. Today was a Saturday, so I expected to run across a ton of pedestrians, but I hadn't encountered a single one so far. All the stores that should have been open were closed, which kind of weirded me out. Maybe I was just confused. Like, maybe I had thought it was 7 p.m. when it was actually 2 a.m. Yeah, like that ever happened. But even so, it was way too quiet. I could barely hear any of the normal city noises you'd expect. You know, come to think of it, wasn't that new gen murder that you'd stumbled across also eerily quiet in the surrounding area? The aura the city was giving off was different than usual. I arrived at the Shinsen Station convenience store. It was right in front of the train station, and yet there wasn't a single person here either. I was starting to get more and more freaked out. The sudden disappearance of something I'd taken for granted was enough to make me feel like I'd been transported to a completely different world. On a normal day, I would always avoid running into or talking to other people, but all I wanted right now was just to see another person's face. I burst inside the convenience store. There has to be someone working here, I thought to myself as I looked around the store. There's no one here. There were no customers, nor any employees. I'm gonna go red again.
まさか。
This couldn't be happening. An employee had to be in the back. If I were to just bring someone up to the register, they should come out right after. So I decided to leisurely grab a boxed lunch, pretend to flip through a manga magazine while I was at it, and then come up to the counter and set the box down. No one came out. For some reason, I had a bad feeling about this. This wasn't normal. Maybe I'd somehow managed to stumble into something completely unreal. While still standing in front of the counter, I casually looked outside the store. Beyond the automatic glass doors was a street where not a single person was walking. Then, I saw a silhouette hiding in the shadows of the apartment complex across the street.
Huh?
The form hid itself right after I saw it, but I had already seen it. Clearly. In the silhouette's hand was an object that resembled a long black cylinder. Was that a sniper rifle? Did that mean the silhouette was a member of the riot police? Or maybe the SAT? That was why I couldn't see any customers or employees. The police had blocked off the area. But why the hell would they do that? Having thought that, I started freaking out. I quickly looked around the store, then ducked behind a shelf. Could this be? Was there a police standoff happening right now at this very store? If there was, then there'd be an obvious commotion, don't you think? A criminal who had taken the store employee hostage might be barricading himself in the back. You would have heard something by now if that was the case. And that criminal might be the true new gen culprit. Oh God. I sank down to the floor and cradled my head in my hands. Why had I let myself go somewhere so dangerous? Wait, no, this wasn't my fault. The police were the police. If they were blocking off the area, then they should have stopped me before I went into the convenience store. It was their fault. Was there any way I could escape? If I stayed here, they'd take me hostage too. Fortunately, I hadn't run into the culprit yet. If he was hiding in the back room, I should get out now while I still can. I was so scared. My knees felt like they were about to give out. It was extremely difficult to even stay upright. Even so, I kept myself low to the ground and slowly shuffled toward the automatic doors. It began to shout, so cliche, you wouldn't even hear it on modern-day detective shows. From outside the store, a policeman started shouting through the megaphone. It startled me so bad that I had hid behind the shelf again. What an incredibly stereotypical way to call out to them. Didn't they have a negotiator or something? 30 seconds? That was practically nothing. They wanted to come in by force? Were they trying to put the hostages in danger? If you did that in modern-day Japan, the public and mass media would eat you alive. What the hell are the police thinking? I stayed crouched down on the floor and held my breath. My heart was pounding insanely fast. I felt like my chest was about to burst. If the police were going to force their way into the store, the whole place would become a war zone, and I'd be caught right in the crossfire whether I wanted to or not. I might get hit by a stray bullet and die right there. Please, no. I couldn't see what the criminal was doing. The entire store was silent. I was getting angry. What the hell is the criminal doing? Hurry up and surrender already! Otherwise, I'd get caught up in this too! I gingerly peeked out from behind the shelf and looked outside once more. And what I saw shocked me to my core. There were several SAT snipers in plain view of me, all of which were trained their sniper rifles right at the store. I frantically jerked my head back behind cover. The police were going to shoot the criminal to death. Would they be able to get away with something like that in Japan? I couldn't believe it. This couldn't be happening. Give me a break. My eyes darted around the room restlessly, until suddenly, they settled on my hand.
Huh?
For some reason, in my hand was a knife. And the blade was soaked in red. It was blood. Aha! So you're the perp after all. I was confused. How long I had this knife in my hand? Where'd I even get it? I heard someone groaning close by. An employee was lying on the floor. He was a bleary-looking guy, likely a college student. His hands were tied behind his back, and his mouth was covered with duct tape. He was looking at me. His eyes were stricken with fear. Why are you looking at me? Don't look at me like that. You're looking at me like I'm a criminal. Wait. Was I the criminal? No, it wasn't me. I hadn't done anything. Wasn't happening. This wasn't happening. This wasn't happening! Yeah, the police would never do that. Like, come on. Fire! Really? It wasn't like a standoff. Like a standoff was a battle straight out of the Sengoku period or something. Several minutes had passed while I was having my delusion. There was still no sign of any employees. I wanted to believe that the cashier was just taking a nap, so I waited for another 5 minutes. I gotta go pee, so I'll let you wait a couple minutes while I do that. But while I waited, no employees showed up, nor did any customers enter the store. There wasn't even as much as a sound. After enough time had passed, I started feeling scared, so I put the boxed lunch back on the shelf and left the store. I opted to go to the railroad crossing located right next to the station. From there, I'd be able to see the Shinsen station platform. There was no way a place like that would be deserted, right? That's what I hoped, but There was no one there. I waited for a train to come. Once that happened, there would be a bunch of passengers that would get off. But even if no one got off, I definitely see people riding the train as it passed in front of me. Even after 10 minutes, a train still hadn't come. I tried to convince myself that there must have been an accident or something that had messed with the schedule, but there was no sign of any passengers on the platform. It was then that I finally realized the gravity of the situation. This was weird. This was really, really weird. That's it. I'll go to Shibuya Station. There absolutely had to be people there. No doubt about it. There were people in front of Shibuya Station 24/7, without fail. I broke into a run without thinking. I ran as hard as I could. I didn't want to stop even if I was out of breath. It was probably the first time in my life that I had ever run so hard. As I ran, I hoped that this was just some sick dream I was having. But I knew it wasn't. My heart and lungs felt like they were about to explode. The pain was far beyond what you could feel in a dream. It surprised me how unbelievably fast I was breathing. And yet, no matter how much I inhaled, the pain refused to go away. As I kept running down Dogenzaka, I finally saw 107. By the time I did, my legs were already shaky. My body felt extremely heavy. Even so, I forced my feet to keep moving. I no longer had it in me to pay attention to my surroundings. The entirety of my consciousness was forced on Scramble Crossing, the symbol of Shibuya. Almost there. Just a little bit farther. The second I passed 107, I'd be right there. The largest in Japan. It was a place where the largest number of people in Japan came together all at once. That was why. That was why I had to get to Scramble. To Scramble. Empty. That was the state of Shibuya Station, which I could see from the Y junction running in front of 107. A world without sound. A world that felt dead. A place which had always been flooded with overwhelming sound, now ruled by silence. The only thing I could hear was the sound of my own head breathing.
そんな
I fell to my knees in the middle of the large street. I couldn't walk another step. The shock had stolen every last ounce of strength from my body.
ここ渋谷だろ
There was no one to my left, to my right, in front of me, behind me. There was no one anywhere. Even though 7 p.m. on Saturday night was when Shibuya should have been the most crowded. What was going on? This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. I closed my eyes and cradled my head. This was a dream. An illusion. This couldn't be reality. Yes, it was true that I wanted to live a quiet and peaceful life all by myself. I didn't want anyone to interfere with me, and I didn't want to get involved in anything. But that didn't mean I wanted to live in a world where no one existed. If no one else existed, who would pay for my living expenses? Takumi, if nobody else in the world exists except for you, I don't think you're gonna need to worry about the landlord coming for your rent anymore. Just saying. If no one else existed, who would make boxed lunches for me to eat? You. If no one else existed, who would play ESO with me? The AI computer. If no one else existed... A sound. I heard a sound. It hadn't come from me. It had been from someone else. Someone was here. Someone other than me was nearby. Careful now. It might be the one person you want to see the absolute least. Remy. I felt like I had been saved. As I thought, it was just a coincidence. It only appeared like there was no one here. In truth, no one had disappeared. I wasn't the only one left in the world. I am not even going to try to take this apart. It's so blatantly obvious how wrong it is. I was so relieved that I almost started crying. I turned my gaze toward the sound.
君は
We've got ourselves somebody in a wheelchair. It was a boy in a wheelchair. A short distance away from me, though still in the middle of the intersection, he sat quietly in place. I couldn't figure out how old he was. If I had to guess from his size alone, I'd say he looked like he was in elementary school. He was wearing his hat so low that I couldn't see his expression very well. But
やっと会えたね。
I could hear the boy's voice extremely clearly. It felt like he was whispering directly into my ear, which made me turn around. Of course, there was no one there.
これどうなってるんですか？
Even though he was younger than me, I ended up speaking formally to him.
どうして誰もいないのか？君は理由を知ってますか？知ってるよ。
Despite how young his voice sounded, there was nothing childish about it.
それより僕のメッセージは受け取ってくれた？
So that was you? Message? What message? I had no idea what he was talking about.
誰だ？君は。
The boy moved his wheelchair forward slightly. The wheelchair was old, and it made a rusty sound as it came closer to me.
その目誰の目？でしょ？
I was confused. Why had he murmured, "Whose eyes are those eyes?" just now? Who was he?
目覚めるんだ。早く。出ないと、もっとたくさんの人が死んじゃうことになるから。君は一体。
I rubbed my eyes to wipe away my tears. And because of that, I was finally able to get a clear look at the boy's face. The boy wasn't a boy. His skin was covered with wrinkles, like an old man. His cheeks were hollow. His eye sockets had sunken into an abnormal extent. His pupils were cloudy. He had no eyebrows. And his body was as small as a child's.
僕は将軍だよ。
Your Shogun? For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. My head felt like I'd been struck by a hammer. The ground was shaking violently. No, My body was falling over. I shot my hands out onto the asphalt to keep myself upright. What? What had he just said? Shogun. He was... Shogun?
忘れないで。君は逃げちゃいけない。
I lifted up my head and watched the Shogun, who had already turned his back to me, left Scramble Crossing. His wheelchair was getting farther and farther away, making a creaking sound as it moved. The thought of chasing after him and pressing him for answers didn't even cross my mind. I didn't think of running up and punching him in the face or dragging me into this either. I wasn't even remotely a confrontational person. My head started to hurt. The area around my temples throbbed with pain. Still cowering on the spot, I tried to endure it. In the world without sound, a discordant noise began to spread. I hear a humming noise, an all-encompassing static. Whose voice was that? Don't look at me. What had previously been just a random, discordant mess of garbled static gradually turned into a real voice. Someone gently placed a hand on my shoulder.
邪魔なんだっつうの。
何してんだろうね。
最近の若いもんは。
なんかのパフォーマンスじゃないの？タク。
While still trying to endure the pain of my headache, I looked up. Hello. The demon girl, Rimi, was peering in my face as she stood over me. Eyes that were clear, full of life. Eyes that looked at me, and only me. Again. This girl had appeared out of nowhere once again.
歩ける？歩いて。
She wrapped her hand under my arm and tried to make me stand up. I shrieked and shook her off. I came to my senses and looked around. I was still in the middle of the street, but it wasn't deserted anymore. There were people around me in every direction, walking every which way without paying me any mind. Rimi, with a face that looked like she was about to cry, reached out to me once more.
今は私の言うことを聞いて。
夜だ!
When I screamed, the throbbing in my head transformed into an intense stabbing pain. Even so, I ignored it, scrambling back on all fours to try and get away from Rimi.
お前だろ! お前が見せたんだ! お前の妄想だ! 僕の心を支配して精神攻撃をこの悪魔め! お前なんて剣で殺してやる! ベースに帰れば僕には理想...
An abrupt impact ran through my cheek. It stung with pain, and it began to heat up. She'd slapped me. She was going to kill me once and for all. Scurrying back on all fours, I tried as hard as I could to escape with my life. But Rimi quickly grabbed my hand. With strength I never thought a girl could have, she pulled me toward her. And embraced me. Her soft form gently enveloped my own. It was so warm. I could smell a tiny hint of sweat. Her silky hair tickled the tip of my nose.
しっかりして。
With such an anticlimax, my whole body felt like it was about to give out.
ここにいたら危ないよ。
Her voice was slightly shaky. I couldn't tell if she was crying or not.
信号赤になっちゃってるから。
I was so confused. Was she not going to kill me? Why was she helping me? The hallucination from before, where all the people of Shibuya disappeared. It wasn't something she'd forced me to see. No, I don't think she'd had anything to do with it. When I felt such a kind, gentle warmth, when she embraced me so innocently, it shook everything I had believed up until that point. Could it be that Sakihara Rimi wasn't actually a demon at all? Or was it foolish to believe that? What if this was just a cunning way to deceive me? Regardless, one thing was for sure. With Rimi hugging me, I felt an incredible sense of relief. I had no idea what to call such a strange sensation. Comfort? Upon letting go of me, Rimi put my face between her hands, then stared at me once again. Her eyes were slightly red.
お願い。今は私についてきていい？
For some reason, I nodded. We were standing still, alone in the middle of the empty intersection. A number of people on the sidewalk waiting for the pedestrian signal to change were watching us closely. We could hear a few people laughing here and there. Many cars had their headlights trained on us and were starting to honk their horns. Rimi grabbed my hand tightly and started running toward the sidewalk. She pulled me along with her, and I followed. For a second, when I saw that silhouette up there, I thought I was looking at Mawu from The Devil on D-String. D-String? G-String! Where the hell did I get D-String? With countless horns blaring at us, we made it to the sidewalk. Rimi breathed a sigh of relief and stopped. My hand was still in hers. Just being held in this way made my heart feel more and more at ease. I just wanted to submit myself to this feeling. I wanted to stay like this forever. Rimi turned back in my direction.
無事でよかったね。
She smiled an incredibly happy smile. I didn't know whether it was real, an act, or what exactly it was. But
話してよ。
because I had been so hostile to her until now, because I had thought of her as a demon until now, if I let her win me over like this, I felt like I'd cease being myself.
あ、ごめんごめん。
She quickly let go of my hand.
それにしてもびっくりした。タクが道の真ん中でうずくまってるんだもん。信号が赤になった時はどうなることかと。
I turned my back to Rimi as she started talking cheerfully. I walked off, pushing my way through the crowd of people.
僕帰る。
じゃあ送るよ。具合悪いんでしょ。
Her voice chased me from behind, but I shook my head in refusal.
タク。
The cheerfulness from before had vanished from her voice. I felt terrible, considering how much she had done to help me. So I just let her come along. I don't think she's going to do anything.
ありがとう。
Barely, just barely, managed to squeeze out those words. To think that the 3 investigative divisions would actually be merged into one. Staring at the detectives gathered in the Shibuya Police Department's conference room, Ban Yasuji thought that to himself. The Ino Kashira line Shibuya Station public bathroom homicide case, or, as the media call it to amuse themselves, the vampire case, had caused an increasingly serious drop in manpower. When 3 brutal murders occurred within the same jurisdiction, within the same period of time, the possibility of a single perpetrator became more and more evident. A suggestion had been raised that the Cornelius Tower mass suicide case be handled by the juvenile division, but since the media had been treating it as part of New Gen, there was a possibility that if the police treated the case differently, they would be subjected to criticism. Therefore, it was only natural that the central office had chosen the only remaining option: to merge the several investigation headquarters. With this integration now in place, the group was reviewing the series of New Gen cases one by one. The projection screen at the front of the conference room displayed a series of photographs of the crime scene one after the other. Suwa had been chosen to hold the presentation. He had stayed up all night going over the documents endlessly. Good work, Ban muttered internally, chin resting in his hands.
コーネリアスタワー集団投身自殺事件の発生は9月7日っす。です。ニュージェネとマスコミが呼称している4つの事件の中では一番最初に発生してます。午後11時半ごろ、渋谷コーネリアスタワー屋上のヘリポートから男女5人が転落、全員死亡しました。5人は全員未成年の高校生、男が3人、女が2人。ただし5人のうち男女1人ずつだけが同じ学校なだけで、それ以外の3人はいずれも別の学校でした。5人それぞれの爪の間にわずかな肉片が残っており、手のひらに引っかき傷があったことが司法解剖で判明しました。そこから5人は互いに手をつないだ状態で転落したと推測されます。屋上には遺書らしきものはなし。被害者5人は学校帰りに待ち合わせてコーネリアスタワーへ向かったようです。なお、事件性があることを示す根拠としては、コーネリアスタワー屋上が関係者以外立ち入り禁止であったことが挙げられます。事件があった時間、屋上への扉は施錠されており、その扉のドアノブに被害者5人の指紋は付着してませんでした。また5人の遺品からも扉の鍵は見つかっていません。このことから被害者以外の第三者が事件前後にその現場にいた可能性があります。
Seems logical.
その第三者が扉の鍵を持っており、事件前あるいは事件後に鍵を閉めて立ち去ったという線で捜査を続けてます。コーネリアスタワーのホテル従業員全員への聞き取り調査は終了。ほぼ全員にアリバイがありました。今はタワーに入っている企業の社員に話を聞いているところです。被害者たち5人には今のところ自殺する理由は見つかっていません。家族、友人、学校の教師など5人中4人の関係者が口を揃えて自殺する理由などないと断言しています。
The slideshow swapped to a picture of the second case, the Shibuya Station Underground and fetus homicide cases. Oh, Lord.
続いて 通称妊娠男事件についてですが、事件発生は9月19日、通称集団ダイブ事件から12日後。第一発見者は現場近くのカラオケ店店員、遺体発見は午前5時前後。被害者は渋谷区在住の大学3年生、近衛千鶴夫21歳。発見された時にはすでに死亡してました。死亡推定時刻は遺体発見の約4時間前、19日の午前1時頃です。遺体は腹部が不自然に大きく膨れ上がっており、中から胎児が発見されました。
I'm noticing that there's a very noticeable handprint on his stomach. Is it from the culprit?
司法解剖の結果、被害者は生きたまま腹部を何者かに切開され、胃の中に胎児を入れられたようです。
Horrible way to die.
胎児はすでにその時点で亡くなっていたと思われます。被害者が死亡したのは腹部を縫合された後、縫合した部分をかきむしったり、縫合糸を一部引きちぎった形跡が見られました。胎児は妊娠8ヶ月ぐらいの状態で、母親の体から帝王切開で取り上げられたと考えられます。胎児の母親については今のところ見つかってません。その生死についても不明です。 DNA 鑑定の結果、胎児と被害者には血縁関係はありませんでした。ちなみに胎児の血液型は B 型、被害者の血液型は A 型です。
Suwa took a breath. He seemed exhausted from all the talking. Furthermore, he must have been awfully nervous giving a presentation in front of so many senior detectives.
次に第3の事件、丸山町貼り付け殺人事件です。
After a short delay, the next slide displayed a photo of the crucifixion crime scene.
これが現場写真です。事件発生は9月29日。被害者は太田久志56歳、都東大学教授。
Where's all the blood?
第一発見者は現場のすぐ近くのアパートに住む男性。被害者の死因は絞殺でした。殺害された後で10本程度の釘を使って貼り付けにされていました。
Wait a minute. Why aren't you mentioning Takumi? You spoke with him and he told you that he came across the murder and the murder as it was occurring. Unless you don't believe him. Well, that's unfortunate.
見ての通り、
Wait,
遺体には
what?
外傷は
After they were killed, the body was pinned to the wall with 10 small metal spikes. What the hell?
ほとんどありません。
There was much more than just 10. At least from what I can remember of that scene. Wasn't there? Wait a minute. What if there were two crucifixion murders, and the police just hadn't come across the second one? And if that's what's going on here, then who the hell is the second guy?
釘についても貼り付けは一部肉体を貫通しているものもありましたが、基本的には衣服を通して貼り付けられている状態です。マスコミでは貼り付け、血の惨劇などと謳われてますが、出血は全くなし。釘はドイツのクロイツナーゲル社が販売している特徴的な長い十字架のような杭です。犯人が十字架型をあえて選んだということから、宗教的な側面からも捜査を進めてます。 事件の起きた21時から21時半の間に現場周辺で壁に杭を打ちつける音が数十分続いていたという証言が複数得られました。
Again, 9 and 9:30 p.m. I could have sworn that the murder we witnessed occurred before then.
被害者の死亡推定時刻がほぼそれと同じ時間であることから、おそらく被害者は現場かそのすぐ近くで殺害されたと思われます。また信憑性は怪しいですが、事件現場で私立水明学園の女生徒を見たという証言も上がってます。最後に、
Okay, wait a
井の
minute. So
頭
they
線
did
渋
mention
谷
that
駅トイレ
testimony.
殺人事件、通称ヴァンパイア事件です。
So yeah, they did take my testimony into account, but it's just not credible. Although to be fair, I guess I can see why they would view it as such. Oh wait a minute, he said that.
事件発生は10月10日。遺体発見は午前5時半ごろ、駅員が発見しました。被害者の身元は今のところ不明。身元を示すような遺留品は一切ありませんでした。死亡推定時刻は前日の午前10時から午後6時の間。遺体の血液は全て抜かれており、まるでミイラのような状態で放置されていました。ご存知の通り、この写真が何者かによって撮影され、遺体発見より15分ほど前にインターネットのオークションに出品されており、
As he listened to Sua's explanation, Ban gave a light click of the tongue. Seems like death is what's in these days. Chapter 4, D-Sword. There's a definite discrepancy between the Kruka fiction murder that I witnessed and what we just saw in the police report. A definite difference. What does that mean for us, I wonder? Sign City was a pair of buildings located just south of the Shibuya Scramble crossing. A small plaza rested in front of the entrance to the east building. While it was not nearly as big as the ones in front of Hachiko, the Moyai statue, or other popular destinations, it still found itself used quite often as a meeting place. Even now, around a dozen people were staring at their cell phones, waiting for their engagements to begin. Oh, look who it is. Among those few, only one girl wore an oddly stern expression on her face as she idled. A high school student known as Aoi Sena. She was standing next to the escalator leaning down from the Inokashira line station. She leaned her back against a nearby white pillar as she thoroughly scanned the environment of her gaze. In contrast to both the sharpness of her gaze and the season, she was nibbling on a popsicle, which in turn made her appear incredibly charming to the casual observer. In truth, the girl was not waiting for anyone, but was instead quietly observing the passerby. From where she was standing, she could see all the way to the Jumbotron located at Scramble Crossing. A music video from a famous singer was being displayed on it, and on the lower portion of the screen, a news ticker was reporting the latest information on the recent string of incidents, colloquially referred to as New Gen. Not a day went by without New Gen related news. It was everywhere. TV, Newspapers, the internet, weekly magazines, jumbotrons, electronic billboards. Everywhere. Although Seina had absolutely no interest in the phenomenon, she would often overhear people speaking about it as she passed them by on the streets of Shibuya. Whose eyes are those eyes? Over the past few days, she had begun to see several people wearing t-shirts with those words emblazoned on them. In Shibuya, the phrase had become popular as an obscure meme, and it was now starting to really take off. Despite the brutal scene that the words originated from, people happily walked on down the streets, raving about how well the shirts were selling at souvenir shops in Harajuku, a clear indication of how disinterested people were in anything other than themselves. The little popsicle says you lose. Too bad, Seina. You're a loser. Seina snorted quietly in a contemptuous display, finished the last bite of her popsicle, and closed her eyes softly without losing her stern expression. She listened carefully to the noise of the city. An abundance of different sounds billowed in front of the station on the Sunday afternoon. The roar of trains arriving at the platform, the blaring horns of taxis, people walking and talking, the background music coming from the jumbotrons, and from inside the Sign City stores, the announcements telling people how to safely ride the escalators. The sounds were never allowed to end. Before one sound finished, another one would appear, creating a multi-layered discord that rang throughout the station. In the midst of all the discordant noise, Seina focused her attention only on the people's voices. Her mind blocked out all other sound, and their words soon became clear.
結局全部同じ
違
犯人なのかな。
うってニュースで言ってたぞ。手口が違いすぎるって。
怖くね？バンドの歌詞と一緒らしいじゃん。
ファンタズムな。お前
あのバンドの歌はこじつけて
今時ファンタズム知らないなんてさ。
じゃあ CD 貸せよ。
くれてるよな。
ほらこれ見てくれ。
この前から超ゲルやってたんだ
結構来るじゃね。
マジで来てるやつ初めて見た。でもあれじゃね？これってニュージェネの犯人に殺してくださいってアピールしてるようなもんじゃん。
俺もいよいよ全国デビューが。
最近渋谷超怖い。マジうざい。やる気ねえもん。入場なんかそういう噂がクラスで殺される可能性あるじゃない。キモい男とかだけ殺してほしいよね。マジ応援する。
I agree. Couldn't have said it better myself. A short click of the tongue escaped from Seina's mouth, and she stopped listening soon after. There was nothing of value to be found in any of the noise. After all, noise was simply that. Noise.
この視線の感覚、気のせいか。
Once more, Seina examined her surroundings. For a while now, she had been feeling a repulsive sensation, like cold fingers caressing her spine. A gaze being cast upon her by an unknown entity. One with which she was unable to pinpoint exactly what the source was. Seina pushed herself off of the pillar she was leaning against. Then, as if she had just remembered something, she stared down at the popsicle stick in her hand.
外れか。
Loser! You're a loser! Are you feeling sorry for yourself? Well, you should be, because you are dirt! You make me sick, you big baby!
Mm-hmm. Gradually growing more and more discontent, she wrinkled her brow and began to walk quickly, toward the station.
あの空はどうして あんなに泣きたくなるくらい青いのかな。
Because someone wished for it to be.
私は望んでない。
No, but I did. Because this place is your image world, but at the same time, it is mine as well.
ねえ、あの空はどこにあるの？
Wherever you wish for it to be.
望んでいいの？
Is that you, Nanami? No. No, obviously not. It wasn't her voice. What was I thinking? Saratan was calling me. Last night's episode of Bloodtoon was awesome. Saratan played a huge part in it, and there was a super hot kiss scene. The animation quality was practically movie tier, too. Saratan was calling me. Plus, she was saying such moe things that I could not wake up. I tore the blanket off my body and got up from the sofa with a groan. You know, I unironically would want an alarm like this just so I could wake somebody else up with it. As a prank. The moment I turned off my alarm clock, the voice of Saratan that had been echoing throughout the room disappeared.
Ohayo, Sarah.
The Sarah alarm clock I had was very useful. If I didn't turn it off, the volume would slowly get louder and louder. And if I still didn't get up, an obnoxious buzzer sound would ring out. I wanted to be Saratan who woke me up in the morning, so I made it a point to wake up and turn it off before the buzzer. I'd only failed to do so once or twice so far. After all, being woken up by Saratan was a great way to start the day. Waking up was the absolute worst. I played Vidya until dawn, and the couch had been extremely uncomfortable once I actually had gone to sleep. But having her wake me up helped me alleviate some of that pain. You have a bed. Clean it. Then lie in it. Then you wouldn't have the pain. Problem solved. Pay me money for helping you solve your back problems. Oh, there we are. Today was a school day. I skipped a day last week, so my minimum attendance chart was really starting to fall apart. With the chart, I was only slated to go twice this week, but because of that deviation, I was stuck with having to go 3 times instead. Oh, the horror! I didn't want to go, but it'd be much worse if I didn't. If I missed any more days, I wouldn't be able to graduate. Then again, whether or not I graduated made no difference to me, to be honest. Just a moment ago, I've been having a dream with Rimi in it. It was a strange dream. One that felt terribly wistful. One that felt terribly lonesome. One that felt terribly sad. And one that felt terribly distant. Would Rimi come to school today? I've been thinking about the day before yesterday constantly. I've been thinking about it so often that I'd even forgotten to play ESO yesterday. There had been the appearance of Shogun, and a delusion where every person in Shibuya disappeared, but I was barely given either of those things any thought. It had to have been just a delusion of mine. There was no way Shogun could be such an old man. And the idea of people just disappearing from Shibuya or whatever was completely ridiculous. So there was no point worrying about it. It had been a horribly realistic delusion, sure, but the fact that I'd allowed myself to fall for something so unrealistic so easily and get all freaked out about it was just embarrassing. But regardless, above all else, I was thinking about Rimi, the girl I had been calling the demon girl until only a couple days ago. Most of what I'd felt back then was shaky and surreal, as if it were some sort of dream. But I could still vividly remember the sensation of Rimi's body embracing my own. If she hadn't done that, I could have gone insane and lost myself completely. Why had Rimi saved me? Maybe because we really were friends. I didn't have any memories of us being classmates now, let alone since first year, nor did I remember going to the movies with her along with Misumi-kun. But the way she treated me was definitely how you treat a real close friend. She even seemed like she'd been close to crying when she held me. That, at the very least, I didn't think was an act. That was the first time I'd ever seen a girl care about, let alone cry over an otaku freak like me. When she treated me like that, all of my fears and suspicions were blown away in an instant. In fact, it made me feel like I might fall in love with her. No, I obviously couldn't let myself do that. Well, if she's truly not dangerous, unlike what that very first impression of her would have us initially believe, then why not? I would still like to know what the hell was that we saw there, though, with her and all that. Doubly so because it seems to me like there may have been two crucifixion murders instead of just the one. Confusion invaded every corner of my mind. How was I supposed to act around Rimi from now on? Was Rimi my ally? Or my enemy? Was Rimi the new-gen culprit? She'd saved me. That was an undeniable fact. But it was just as much of a fact that I had seen her standing as still as could be at the scene of the crucifixion, covered in blood. On my way to school, I stopped by Shoto Park. After what happened to Yuya, I put a stop to my habit of eating breakfast there before going to school. There was no way I could feel even remotely relaxed when I thought that Yua could be watching me from anywhere. And even if I ignored that, if she came up to talk to me, she would start going off about her irritating, delusional schizo bullshit all over again. I didn't want anything to do with a girl like her. Yua was Rimi's underling. Sure, my original guess may have been incorrect. But that didn't mean that Yua wasn't my enemy. It was still possible that Shogun was the boss of the whole thing, and Yua was one of his underlings. Yeah, that's right. Thinking about it now, if that person in the wheelchair we saw is indeed Shogun, and it isn't like some alternate version of Takumi or something, then Yua's assumption about Takumi and Yua being the same as Takumi, and Shogun being the same person was completely off the mark. Either way, I knew I'd be better off staying as far away from her as I could. And yet, I found myself coming here today for some reason. I examined my surroundings carefully to make sure that I couldn't see Yua anywhere. And once I knew the coast was clear, I slowly sat down on my usual bench. I took a bite of the chocolate bread I just bought from the convenience store, then looked out at the pond. Chocolate bread? Sure it's not cake? There was next to no wind, and the surface of the water was calm and serene. I could see the occasional shadows of carp-esque fish gliding through the murky water. The park was unusually empty today. It was a very quiet spot. As my gaze wandered across the park, I couldn't help but think about Rimi. To be honest, I've been dreading going to school today. I knew I'd have to face her if I did. That was the real reason why I was stalling at the park. I felt like I'd said a lot of awful things to her. And yet, the smile on her face never faltered, and she always treated me like I was a close friend. And I was sure that, when I went to school today, she would keep on doing that as if nothing had even happened. She'd smile and talk to me like we were friends, pretending that she didn't even care at all about what happened in front of 107. It was hard to put into words, but I felt a little annoyed by her constant cheerfulness. Yet at the same time, I also ended up feeling more cheerful myself when I was with her. I wasn't sure how to act once I did run into her. It was true that I didn't think she was a demon anymore. But honestly, I didn't think of her as a friend either. Misumi-kun had said that she and I had been really close classmates for the past year and a half. But I didn't remember anything like that at all. Maybe it really was because of the person controlling me. But making my memories of Rimi, and only Rimi, disappear at pinpoint accuracy like that, there was no way that was possible. As far as we know. Even though I feel like we'd be cutting this a little bit short, I think I'm going to go ahead and end things here for today. So, that person in the wheelchair calling themselves Shogun. The blatant the blatant and growing discrepancies between the crucifixion murder I witnessed and the one that we saw in that report. And of course, Takumi's softening attitude towards Rimi herself. Yeah. I was just about to say the message, but we already got the answer to what that was about. But then again, I still have questions about that message. Because I don't think it was just a simple hello. Maybe it was a means for Takumi and Shogun to meet with each other somehow. Either way, there's a lot of stuff that happened in this episode. I certainly am going to be thinking about for a good while. Likely until the next time that we come back. Don't know if I'll have any additional theories to go on by then. But all the same, very interesting developments. With all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of Chaos Head Noah. If you did and you want to see more content from me, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I will see you all next time. Take care.